Hi guys, this is Ellie or Elizabeth, and today I'm giving you guys a presentation on Anna Mendieta, um, who is the artist that I have chosen for my artist research project. I have titled the presentation Earth, Body, and Identity based on her overarching themes and just the major points that she makes through her work. So let's just dive right in. Anna was born in Havana, Cuba in 1948 when she was 12 years old, and she was sent to the US through Operation Peter Pan, which was the mass exodus of Cuban children escaping political turmoil at the time. It was a very dangerous place for children to be, so Operation Peter Pan was to get the children to a safer country. So she ended up in Iowa, completely separated from her family, culture, and language. So as you can imagine, she experienced a lot of culture shock as well as trauma of just being displaced. Um, and honestly, this shaped her identity and her work for the rest of her life. We'll see a lot of it throughout the works that we're going to look at today. Um, but she identifies as Cuban American because she did move when she was 12, so she spent a lot of her growing up here in America. But she was definitely influenced by those 12 years that she spent in Cuba. And I think that a lot of her work represents the struggles of being an immigrant and coming to a new life. So Mendieta studied at the University of Iowa. While she was there, she got involved in experimental intermediate program. She was influenced by earth artists, feminist thinkers, and indigenous spirituality, which is a huge foreshadow towards what she's going to create in her life. Um, but unlike a lot of male artists that were creating at the same time as Anna, she used her own body as her medium and her message, which was kind of unheard of. Um, and she did a lot of interesting series with it and shaped the art world for the better, I think. Um, yeah, so we are just going to dive into some of her work, some of the most important ones that I think impacted me the most. But I thought that this was important to know where she went to school, um, and just how she kind of dove into art. So this was one of her earlier series, um, and it's called the Silueta series. It is her most famous body of work. For this work, Anna imprinted her body silhouette into landscapes. These two photos, one of them is actually her silhouette, but it's like made of sticks or matches or something, and it's lit on fire. Um, so she would fill these sticks with she would fill these silhouettes with certain things. Um, and then the whole goal was that they would be photographed and moved on. So they were filled with mud, sand, grass. She filled them with fire, flowers, blood, pigment, whatever she could find. Um, and she integrated the natural earth into her work as much as she could. And like I said, these pieces were temporary. They were photographed just before they faded away. So in the bottom piece, you can see that she is laying there, and it is just her body completely covered in flowers and what looks like kind of grassy weeds where the flowers are growing from. Um, and she's embedded in this rocky terrain. And this is how all the pieces were. As you can see, it went from 1973 to 1980, which was a long time. So there is a lot of silhouettes. If you look up her Silueta series, it's actually shocking at how many of these that she did. Um, but yeah, it's just one of her most impactful series to me. She was very fascinated with the human body and how it could be used as a medium for her work. So I just love how she played with her own silhouette and played with the natural earth and how the two interact and can coexist. A few themes of the silhouettes. Oh, sorry, I have a typo there, but the silhouettes are about absence and presence, which I thought was fascinating. She's marking the earth with her body, claiming space, but also showing her disappearance. It's about being a woman, being exiled, being unseen. It's poetic, political, and spiritual. I loved these two for this reason. because it shows that juxtaposition of being absent at the same time while making an impact. She's present without being present, and I thought that that was so cool and interesting. Um, the first one you can see it's the foam of like water that fills her silhouette, and in the other one she's used this red pigment to fill in her body shape, her silhouette, in this like rocky terrain. Both of them show that she was there, that she made a mark, but at the same time she's not there. I love how she ties this into being exiled and not being seen. I think that that is how she kind of digested the trauma of being moved throughout her life, from being taken out of Cuba so abruptly, kind of felt like being exiled in a way. And I think that this is how she feels about her Cuban roots, that she has them, but they aren't always seen. Um, she's there, but she's not there. And I think that that played a huge part in this series. And I think that it makes a very clear message about her and her desire to use the earth and just where she came from. So these are just some other works of hers that stuck out to me. This is Earth as her canvas. Anna believed the earth was a sacred space, an extension of her body. She often used natural elements like blood, water, fire, and leaves. As you can see over here, we've got the mud that she used to shape these sculptures. I apologize for the explicit content, but I just wanted to include how she used the human body as her medium, and how that was what she wanted to connect to her art. And then these other ones, one of them is a tree stump while the other one is still this living tree. The living tree one, she actually, I think she titled it Tree of Life, or referred it to the Tree of Life, which I thought was just so interesting. The way the silhouette is attached to the tree trunk and how it symbolizes being born in the earth. And it's just a super impactful type of art. So these choices weren't always just aesthetic. They reflected rituals, cycles, and ancient ways of connecting to the land, which I thought was so interesting, that she had this desire to connect to the land and to be a part of it, which I think has impacted the art that people do up until today. I think she was one of the like trailblazers of using earth as her canvas and making these pieces that were highly temporary, that she just documented once and then they were gone. So these are just a few examples of her work. There are many, many more, but I just didn't have enough room to show all of them. In this next slide, we look a little bit more at her usage of blood. So her work ties into feminism, but not always in traditional Western ways of feminism. She referenced Afro-Cuban rituals, Santeria, and ancient goddess figures. The body in her work becomes sacred, wounded, powerful, and vulnerable all at once. So it was super fascinating because a lot of her work was so controversial for being these ritualistic type scenarios. Obviously, blood is seen as a very spiritual and godly thing to use, especially in the ordinances or sacrifices that people take part in. So it was super fascinating how she used this medium of the human body to create works of art. So here's just a few examples, all of which are using human blood to be created. They're a little gory. I apologize for all the blood shown. But I think it's super interesting how she ties this back to using this blood, which can symbolize the wounded, the powerful, and the vulnerable all at once. That is so fascinating to me. And just something that I think a lot of artists before her hadn't done before. And so I thought that was super fascinating. So this is her mysterious ending. She had a really short life. So in 1985, Anna fell from her 34th floor apartment window. Her husband, who was also an artist, Carl Andre, was accused of her murder but later was acquitted. Her death caused outrage and sparked conversations about gender violence and justice in the art world that continue today. So I just thought this was so fascinating that we don't actually know what happened to Anna Mendieta and how her life ended. Um, it's so symbolistic to me that she used her absence in all these pieces, and now she actually isn't here to show them to us or to, um, she didn't have more time on earth to explain them or let them change and grow and see them become more public and more visible and continue to grow in meaning. But she almost that was kind of almost the point of her work, was to have this presence, but also the absence in the presence. Um, I don't think we will ever know what happened, um, and how she passed away. Um, but we are lucky that she created so much work in the short life that she had, because we have so many artifacts of her life and we have such a huge impact that she made in the world of art history. So even though she had a short life, she really used it to the fullest of its capacity. And on that note, Anna's influence has only grown. Artists today continue to draw from her work on identity, land, and the female body. Her name has become a symbol for women in the art world who has been erased, silenced, or forgotten. I love how she has become this symbol for females and for femininity, which is exactly what she would have wanted. Um, I think if she could have been here to see the impact that she had, um, I think that it would be shocking to her. I don't think she realized how much of an impact she would have on the world of art history, but clearly she did a lot. These are just some of my favorite works of hers. Um, it was just a series of her pushing her face up against this clear piece of like plastic or glass and photographing it. Um, and it's so powerful yet so simple, and kind of goes against all of the things um, that women were known for, of being beautiful and being put together. She's completely undone and completely letting her body shift and morph and look different, which is exactly what she was going for, I think. And this is a photo of it being, um, it was part of a gallery in the MoMA. Um, oh, and it looks like my paragraph didn't save there. Um, but this is just the power of her presence. As you can see, she has this way of using her presence and her absence. And right now, obviously, we use her absence and her work as her presence. But I think that the impact that she made is so interesting. And this is a quote from her. She says, "My art is the way I reestablish the bonds that tie me to the universe." I love that she felt this tie to the universe, and that she was able to use her body, which many believe was created from the universe, and she was also able to use the natural earth, which many believe was created from the universe. Um, so I think it's just so interesting how she utilized those to reestablish a bond between her and the universe. I love that, and the natural sensation of all of her work. Um, so that is my presentation on Anna Mendieta and just all the work that she did. Um, Obviously, I didn't have a ton of time to go over everything. This is just a small snippet, but I have found so much symbolism in her work and the way that she impacted art history and the way that she had such a powerful impact on feminism and political presence. So, thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day. And yeah, thanks.